Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another Off the Lip speaker session. Our weekly guest speaker sessions that we have here at the Green Room, because as you may know, we do love adding value to our community. And one of the ways that we do that is through getting people to speak, like Mr. Milton over here. Milton, we're really excited to have you speak. So I will say no more and just leave the stage up to you. Also, just to remind everybody that we're going to do a short Q&A after the session, and we have this adorable little microphone, so if you have any questions, I will hand it to you, and then you can say it to the microphone, and then Milton will answer your questions for you. Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Would you just give me it's been 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
Hi everyone. I've been here for a week. I'm just traveling a bit at the moment. And I've never been to Jeffreys Bay, and I've been in South Africa since I was born. So it's been really cool to be here and really cool to discover this place. I've been working like a maniac for many days. And I'm leaving today, so it's such a cool way to end the week for me. So my name is Milton Schorr. I'm a writer and an actor. I've written a few novels, and I've been writing for as long as I can. I've been kind of grown, which is the topic of my talk. It's called "What the Lion King Teaches Us About the Power of Narrative." I discovered that story, I call it the technology of story, is probably the thing I love the most. It just fascinates me. It all started for me one evening in St. Helena Bay out on the west coast when I was 15, and a real little drunken, angry teenager smoking my cigarettes. And I had a hand-me-down computer, and I just suddenly kind of became aware of the fact that I was writing a story. And it was late at night and the world was quiet, and the blue glow of this computer screen was just so soothing. And what I was writing was just sort of appearing out of that light. Like I was writing a story about my friend and his dad, and it was kind of this comedy, and I had no idea what I was doing, but it's such a memory for me, and I've actually been writing since then. What I was doing is, I was writing about my friend and his father. I was actually putting a spin on our life. I was actually trying to understand my life. I think stories are quite ancient. We think of, like indigenous societies, like the sand, cave paintings, or what have we been doing since the beginning, telling stories? And what are we doing when we tell stories? We are putting a human in a scenario and seeing what happens, and then, drawing conclusions from what we see. So I've taken that. For me, a story is a device to understand both the mystery of myself and the mystery of the world. And it's been done for so long, and in fact, there is a very recognizable structure to story throughout the ages that has arisen because of this desire to understand human beings and ourselves and our world. There was an academic named Joseph Campbell who put it all together for us. He researched stories throughout the ages and found that there are common plot points. And he called it the monomyth, or the hero myth. And he wrote a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Such a cool title. And in his mind, the monomyth had about 19 different points that can be seen and identified in different stories throughout the ages. You can just sort of pass them around as I go. And you'll see these points in or movies, it's everywhere. Any story that is about a person. And he said something, he said, we have to be ready to let go of the life we had planned in order to accept the one that is waiting for us. And that to me points to the great theme of stories, or the great central device of stories, which is change. I think our lives are about change. It's about dealing with change. It's about not having control over becoming something else. And how does one, incorporate that into your existence? Another person named Dan Harmon, some of you might know, he made Community and Rick and Morty. To my mind, he's just an absolute genius writer. His understanding of structure and the way it goes is phenomenal. And he took Joseph Campbell's very detailed, archaic and old school, stuffy circle and simplified it. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you through it by explaining the Lion King, because I can't think of a story that everyone knows in such detail on average, So he has 8 points on his cycle. It's called the Dan Harmon Story Circle. And it's a circle, and half of the circle is in the light. The top half is called order, and the bottom half is called chaos. You could also say it's light and dark. And it starts with you. Step 1 is you establish the protagonist. So we meet young Simba, who lives in this beautiful world. He lives in heaven. He is the son of the king, so he's utterly safe. Everyone loves him because he's the son of the king. And all he has to do is bask in the love of his father. And his father says to him, one day you will be king. And everything the light touches is yours. Except for where the light doesn't touch, the elephant graveyard. Don't go there. So then we get to point 2, which is in the story, a need is identified. There's something within the character that is at odds with the world around him. Simba is young and curious, as he should be. And he wants to discover more of the world that his father sets it out to. So he takes his best friend, Nala, and they go to the elephant graveyard. And when they're there, things happen which result in his father, the king, the great lord of his life, dying. There's a stampede and his father dies, saving him, because he disobeyed his father. And then his uncle Scar grabs him and he says, don't worry, I've got your back. I'll tell everyone you died so that no one needs to know of the shame of what you've done here today. And all you need to do is disappear and never come back. Simba is destroyed, which leads to point 3, which is crossing the threshold. This is where the character crosses from the light into the dark. Simba leaves the Pride Lands and just goes wandering. And he enters what is known as the time of trials, which is essentially just a time where the character gets to grips with the new world. In Simba's case, it's actually kind of cool. He meets Timon and Pumbaa, and they teach him about Hakuna Matata, and everything is awesome. And we have a montage where he grows up into a teenage lion, and it's brilliant. But actually what's going on is Simba is now a vegan. and he's a fully grown lion. And he's living with a warthog and a meerkat. And his heritage is somewhere else. Which is pushing us towards the 5th step, which is here said 5, meeting the goddess. It's the thing we are looking for when we step out of the order of our lives and go into the dark. we're looking for something that's missing. The process happens over and over. When someone is confronted with a horrible event or anything that is a disturbance, there's something that must be uncovered to re-establish order. And here it's called meeting the goddess, because in a story, generally, this information comes from a spiritual source. Because in a story, generally, the solution for the character is found through confronting the masculine, confronting the feminine, and confronting the spiritual, which kind of reflects our experience as humans born of two, whatever your particular pattern is. So Simba is having a great time, and then he hears one day howls coming from the jungle. It's his friend Pumbaa screaming. He runs in there to find out what's going on, and he sees the coolest thing he has ever seen in his life and couldn't even imagine how cool it is. It is a full-grown lioness hunting. She is awesome. Unbelievable. He attacks her and saves his friend, and at the same time, he just cannot believe how good life can be. And discovers that it's Nala, his friend from when he was a kid. And they recognize each other, and she can't believe he's alive. And she tells him, the kingdom is destroyed. Scar's the worst king ever. You have to come back. Why? What is going on? And he throws a childish fit and says, I can't come back, man. Huffs off. Why? Because he's carrying a burden. He's carrying an untruth. He's carrying something that has not been resolved in his life, which is the shame and the guilt. He believes it's his fault that his father died. And so he goes off alone into a dark place in the middle of the night, as it should be when we meet the goddess. And Rafiki, the medicine monkey, finds him and says to him, gives him what he's looking for. When you can't see the wood for the trees, he says to him, your father is not dead. What? Your father lives on in you. What? Look at your reflection. And he looks in the lake, and he looks basically exactly the same as Mufasa. It's Mufasa staring back at him. It's true. His father does live on. This is the thing that frees us, the truth. And the truth is maybe not extravagant. It's just like a degree on the other side of, oh, it's not my fault. Or what could you do, And then he has a dream when his father comes to speak to him and shows him his lineage and says, you must come back. You are my son. It's James Earl Jones. What are you going to do? So Simba knows he has to go back. So it takes us to step 6, which is paying the price. And this is the thing about stories, and therefore in this context, the thing about life is nothing comes for free. Everything has a consequence. But our consequence we won't change. And the price in this case, he has to leave the idyllic life behind. He was essentially a child here. He can't be a child anymore. So he goes back. Now he's gone all the way into the dark. And now he crosses back into the light. Having found something, he's bringing it with him. And he confronts Scar and tries to re-establish, become the king. But Scar is just too powerful. He's older, he's wiser, and Simba still believes that it's his fault his father died. So Scar immediately starts telling him, oh, you come back here, what are you? You're pathetic, you're nothing. He's got nothing inside him. He can't face this lion. They have a fight, but Scar beats him. And Scar's just about to throw him off a cliff. But of course he's the villain in the story. He can't resist. And he bends down and whispers in his ear at the last moment, and he says, ha ha ha. I killed your father. It was never you. And when Simba hears that, his internal problem is solved. And in an instant, he becomes what he is, which is the alpha lion. And no one will question it. You can see immediately he is what he is now. And in that moment, as his eyes change, Scar just freaks out because there's no way Scar can compete. This thing is, and Simba, throws him out. He becomes the king. And the lesson there is that in story, when you solve the inside, then the outside gets solved. The story is always actually a journey inside. And everything is it's just a different pattern each time of reflecting the outer from the inner. And then solving the inner by finding the basic truth, basic, simple stuff, simple building blocks. And so then we get to the final stage, which I love, is called Master of Two Worlds. Master of both worlds. So Simba is on Pride Rock with Nala, and they've had a cub, and they're presenting the cub. And you can see on his face, he has the darkness in his face. He's a full-grown male now. He's a full-grown king. He knows the place of chaos, and he knows the place of order. He can rule now. He's become a master of both worlds. And that would be individuation, that would be maturity. Of course, for us, it just keeps going and keeps going. But yeah, I love that. I love that. Yes, in that moment when, wow. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you guys. And it's just my passion, and that's why I love writing stories, because I love figuring out each character's puzzle, which is the same as figuring out my puzzle. So I'm going to leave my books here in the book exchange. My latest one it's actually a biography. I was a drug addict when I was younger. Finally, I wrote the story about that. And then this is about a fisherman that meets a mermaid still on the West Coast. So it's magical realism. And then I have a hitchhiking hobby, which I learned growing up on the West Coast. So this is a story of a little boy who's got a hitchhike from Cape Town to Joburg to find his mom. So it's like a coming-of-age adventure story. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Milton. That was really wonderful. I also feel super inspired now to rewatch The Lion King with fresh eyes. So, all right. So, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I'll ask one. Just like that, huh?
Yeah, just my little button that turns on the screen.
Okay, cool. Beautiful, Milton. Really cool to actually get the practicalities of story writing again. I've known Milton since we were at acting school together, so for a long time. And it's cool to see you really talk with beautiful waves, people surfing in the background. That's how I was just watching it. I guess my question is just kind of like you were saying, inspired to. It's kind of about inspiration, actually. For you as a writer and me as a musician, inspiration is a very pivotal part of the journey. I mean, I read your first book, and they always say you've got one book in you, the first one being quite an important one. And I mean, it's a beautiful book. If you guys haven't read it, read them all. Inspiration in terms of, let's say in terms of a muse, or just divine inspiration. How do you contemplate it? How does it, not necessarily the practicalities of how it comes to you, but how do you think after you've written those, will the next inspiration just come? Will you find the inspiration? Will you search for the muse? Will you wait for the muse? No pressure.
I've had many problems. That is not one of them. I always write. Makes me feel like I have a purpose. I hate not having a purpose. It's the worst. I have lots of stories, and I've always got the next one coming. But what I can say is, to my mind, it seems as if it's all about intention. If you decide that you'd like to create something, then there is a process you can follow. And all you need to do is make the space for that process for the result of that process to appear. So there's one kind of screenwriting program that I once took part in, like a very cliche, like write a screenplay in 90 days kind of thing, but actually it was amazing. It was such good knowledge. And one of the things he said is you have to make space for the unknown. So you have to lie in a bath or go wherever you normally feel like you have the best ideas and just lie there and dream, and then let whatever comes come. So I suppose my answer might be make some space for the unknown. But also, if you decide to do something, you don't get to decide the quality, but you can do it, you know, and I'm sure that's enough.
Thanks, man. That was very sort of insightful. And I think one of the things that stood out for me is as you're going through this whole hero story, and as you go through this, is maybe as much as that, maybe we also find we enjoy storytelling so much because we see parts of ourselves within each of the stories and the process that we'll go through. Because that's when each and every one of us sit here, we're all children, and through each of our childhoods, we all experience different things, good and bad, and those bad things we carry with us. And that sort of takes us back into the dark. And if we never reflect on them, I suppose it's also possible seeing coming out of that dark. And once those sentences with Simba changed, and it doesn't, you don't just flip over and you're out. You know, when you met Nolan and you came out, you thought, okay, now I'm coming, things are just going to work out. And maybe even with ourselves, when you do a bit of self-healing, you go through that, you think things are sort of like, there's still challenges. And then Scar was still the challenge, and he suddenly was on his back feet, feeling empty, you know, maybe doubting himself. And then it was just obviously his words that were enlightening again. And so that process takes time. I think in each of us, that, like you said, is a constant thing that goes on. But we can also, almost like the heroes of our own story, we need to sort of become a fulfilled life, I suppose. Otherwise, we constantly just live in the dark, and we never come sort of full circle. I found that really inspiring. So I'm not sure if that's what, I don't really have a question, I was just ready to say. But if I had a question, I suppose it would be a little bit more about the transition and difficulty. Say, what were like some of the biggest difficulties you found in sort of becoming a writer, moving into acting, doing sort of that stuff? I mean, coming from South Africa, you've done all the movies that you've been in, and I mean, those are like huge accomplishments for artists. I mean, that's not an easy transition from here to there. I mean, even writing books, being published, what are the big barriers you'd say in all aspects?
Well, I'll just reflect on what you said first, which is, that's why I love stories, because it's this distillation of life. It's taking the grey and making it black and white, which is rare in life to have black and white. So, you know, in The Lion King, Simba has to face this thing, otherwise he cannot carry on. And that doesn't often happen in life. Sometimes people just sort of stay kind of stuck forever, you know. But yeah, so that's why I call it a technology. It's putting a character in a situation where they must grapple with what potentially we wouldn't necessarily. And secondly, what have the barriers been? It's actually, the barriers have been internal. I graduated from drama school, tried to become an actor. I was like, kind of like this maverick kind of big deal at drama school, because I thrived in the institution and it was safe. And then when I got out of the world, I didn't know what. I had a son very young, I was still grappling with addiction. I had no self-confidence. I didn't book anything as an actor for 10 years. I tried to make theatre, and I made very sort of avant-garde experimental theatre, which to me was the best thing ever, but there was only 30 other people that thought so. And I was broke, and eventually I was forced to find a way to earn money from writing, like the best I could do with the talents I had. And then grace appeared, which is, suddenly I was older and I grew a beard. And suddenly I looked a bit more kind of like someone. and I started getting work as an actor, but acting was never my goal. I was always learning to be a writer and a director. So I started earning money like that. And then I kept writing in the background. And I've been writing the whole time. And I think, you know, if the goal is like financial success, I might be starting to achieve that now, but it's only because of the way that I'm settling within that I no longer like have to write something in a certain way, because I actually don't have, because my inner life is so chaotic, all I can do is express it. Now I'm able to kind of choose things and also look at the world and blend maybe what I want to say with what people want to hear, which I think is fascinating. It's actually like, oh, I'm here to serve you. What do you want? As opposed to, this is what I'm going to give you. If you don't like it, well, fuck you. You know? Like, so I am an actor just because I happen to be able to do it, and I've got a certain kind of face. I generally play villains, and I'll play like the second guy, like the American dude will be the main guy, and I'll be his very quiet number two, and look very tough, and I don't like that at all. So it's just a luck. And then writing has been brutal hard work for 2 decades, and I'm proud of every single thing I ever wrote, and I've not, maybe I've paid the rent once so far, but it is getting better. So I mean, you know, what can I say? And otherwise I'm working kind of corporate at the moment, but it's super creative. So my answer is you do your best. And Dill and I know so many people, the most talented people, who never became the one person with their name on the thing. We're much more talented. It's just, life's real. Like, you don't get to live the dream, but the actual real dream isn't the one that's on the screen. You know. Maybe my aunt says it's a negotiation. Yeah.
What's your favorite animation, and why is it Rick and Morty?
Honestly, Rick and Morty isn't my favorite. It's too intense all the time. You know, it's also actually Family Guy. I love Family Guy, but I love watching clips because it becomes too much. So I'm not really much of an animation person, but I would say probably my favorite is Spirited Away, which is very cliche. But you can just watch it again.
That's a movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think I've seen it. No, I'm asking about Rick and Morty. I mean, you are using Dan Harmon here.
Yeah.
And they go extremely deep.
Yeah.
I don't know if who's watched Rick and Morty yet, but each episode is like a little journey.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot going on in the scenes and stuff, but...
And it's because of the circle.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, when you see it, because the only reason I came up with this because I was researching Joseph Campbell and then found this as the simplified version, and then got into Dan Harmon, already having loved Community. But now you see it in the episodes, and it's this structure that forces a story into like uber entertainment and like real depth. But then the way he does it, it's insane how clever it is. You know, yeah.
No, I find it very interesting. No.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you get to courses screenwriting, or is that something that you're wanting to do?
How do you mean? Me to do?
Yeah. No, for you to be a screenwriter?
Oh, no, I was trying to be a screenwriter at one point. Oh, no, I paid the rent before, actually. Yeah. But for me, I got to the point of like theatre takes getting 10 people to agree for 42 days in a row. Film takes getting 150 people to agree for 2 years in a row. And writing a novel takes me to agree myself And actually I arrived at novels because I just want to write the story. Leave me alone. So that's the truth, you know. So I had a screenwriting phase. Yeah. I left that behind. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Milton, for sharing your insights. I'm sure we can all take this home with us and pay a bit of attention when we're watching our movies and our series and maybe see how all of these things figure. And then sit back and think about our own lives as well. I think that's something I can take away from this chat. But yeah, thank you everybody for attending. I hope you have a beautiful day.
Thanks.